Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, May 14th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 541 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are breaking down the New York Jets 2025 schedule a little bit earlier today. The 2025 schedule for the Jets was leaked, and it has been confirmed by many as the actual schedule ahead of tonight's 8 p.m. Eastern official release. So today, I want to dive right into it, give you the schedule, and break it down, and of course, provide my biggest thoughts and takeaways. So we'll dive right into it here. We'll read through the schedule first and then break it down afterwards. The New York Jets will open up the season at home week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 2, they will be at home against the Buffalo Bills. Week 3 on the road in Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers. That'll be the first of 2 Florida games back-to-back, because then week 4, they'll face the Miami Dolphins on prime time on Monday Night Football. Week 5 will be home against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 6, as we talked about yesterday, they will be in London to face the Denver Broncos. It will count as a home game, but they will be across the pond for that one. Week 7, they'll face the Carolina Panthers at home. Week 8, they'll be on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. Week 9 will be their bye week. Week 10, coming out of the bye, the Jets face the Cleveland Browns at home. Week 11, they'll be on the road against the New England Patriots on Thursday night, a short week. Week 12, on the road against the Baltimore Ravens. Week 13, at home against the Atlanta Falcons. Week 14, at home against the Miami Dolphins. Week 15, on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Week 16, on the road against the New Orleans Saints. Week 17, at home against the New England Patriots. And Week 18, on the road against the Buffalo Bills. We'll throw up the league schedule here on the screen just so then you could see a visual of what things look like here for the New York Jets in 2025. A lot different than what we saw last year and even the year before that, and really just the last couple of years here for the New York Jets, where they have been in the spotlight with a load of primetime standalone games. That was not the case this year. If you are in the boat like I am, which I love the normal 1 o'clock Sunday games, then this is the schedule for you if you're that type of Jet fan. The New York Jets this year have 13 1 p.m. games and just 3 standalone games, with 2 of those coming on primetime. Those 2 primetime games are the Monday night game week 4 against the Miami Dolphins and the week 11 Thursday night game against the New England Patriots. So 2 divisional primetime games, and in the other standalone game, not in primetime, but standalone, is that early morning 9:30 Eastern London game, week 6 against the Denver Broncos, which is completely different with what we have seen recently with the Jets, especially with Rodgers, where this team last year maxed out on primetime games. They also had the London game, so they essentially had 7 standalone games before the season started. As we know, though, the Colts game that was supposed to be on Sunday night ended up getting flexed because it was such a bad matchup as the season went on. So they only ended with 5 primetime games. But this is a kind of back to a normal Jets schedule from a time standpoint, where they're playing 1 o'clock every single weekend. They don't even have a 4:25 Eastern game where they're the national game for the later on, the late afternoon window. They don't even have that this year. Just those 2 primetime games and then the 1 London game. And all 8 games this year at MetLife are at 1 o'clock as well. That has been something else that we haven't seen a ton of recently. It's been a lot of late games, a lot of primetime games, a lot of late night getting home from MetLife for the New York Jets home crowd. Of course, the last 2 home openers have been on primetime, Monday night in 2023, Thursday night last year against New England. This year, I would personally say if Rodgers had already signed with the Steelers, like if he was already official, I do think that probably would have been a Monday night game, maybe the Sunday night game, or at the very least, the prime 4 o'clock window game. But since he's not officially released or officially signed, I think that's why you see that game at 1 o'clock. If he was officially on the Steelers and had already signed, I think that's a primetime game personally. I don't think it's much of a surprise that the New York Jets open up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, the storylines there potentially are endless. If Rodgers does end up signing with the Steelers, you're talking about Rodgers making his return to MetLife. You're talking about Justin Fields against his former team in the Steelers. Of course, Glenn's first game. That's going to generate a ton of headlines. You also understand the whole Rodgers-Jets breakup, which from Rodgers' side of things that he talked about on McAfee was a breakup that he didn't very much appreciate, doesn't have much respect for that coaching staff, the way it ended. So that game is going to generate a lot of headlines. We'll see if Rodgers is out there, how that all plays out, but I don't think it's much of a surprise that the NFL didn't put it on prime time to kind of play it safe in the event that it's a Will Howard or Mason Rudolph versus Justin Fields matchup. But in the case it is Rodgers under center, that is certainly a game that'll generate a lot of eyes. Something else I noted from the schedule before we just break down like some predictions and actual analysis in some of these games. The Jets elected not to take the bye week after London, right? The teams have the choice to do that. Last year, the Jets didn't do that. This year, they don't decide to do that. Of course, different regime, but they instead to take the bye week 9, could have taken it week 7. Instead, they'll face the Carolina Panthers at home week 7. I guess kind of the mindset there would be coming back from London, instead of having to go back on the road, you get the home game, and then you get Cincy on the road, and then you get the bye. And the bye week is kind of in a favorable spot where it's week 9, pretty much smack dab right in front or right in the middle of the season. So that's, of course, that the approach that the Jets decided to take. Every team is different. Something else, too, that I thought was interesting and wanted to break down. Back-to-back home games to open up the season, which is different from last year. Last year, they opened up, of course, back-to-back road games. They also opened up with 3 games in 11 days because they faced San Fran on Monday night, then Tennessee a Sunday game. Then they had the Thursday night game against New England. This year, much more favorable start, 3 straight 1 o'clock Sunday games in a row. So much more of a normal routine before you actually have an extra day between that Tampa-Miami game where you'll be in Florida back-to-back weeks. And that is also kind of just a big takeaway as well with this Jets schedule. While I don't think the Jets personally got the easiest bid, I do think this Jets schedule is actually tougher than I think many of us expected it to be. And I'll break that down why in a second. The part of the Jets schedule that I actually think favors them is the lack of short weeks. The last couple seasons, the Jets have had so many short weeks. And I think it's really interesting when you do some digging. The New York Jets have played the second most short weeks in the NFL over the last 5 years, which is sandwiched between the Cowboys, who have played the most, and the Chiefs, who are third most. And the Jets are the clear outlier there. Of course, Cowboys last year was a poor season, but they're a national team, national brand, have been in the playoffs, competitive every single year. Chiefs, of course, Super Bowls, Mahomes, going to play a lot of holidays, going to play a lot of primetime games. The Jets have been that odd man out of, they've been short weeks, primetime games, late starts, quick turnarounds, but they haven't won. So it's weird to think how many short weeks that the Jets have actually had. When you look at this year's schedule, that's not the case, which I think actually favors them, right? their only two short weeks is week 4 to 5, technically a short week coming off the Monday night game, and then week 11 to 12, or rather week 10 to 11, which is a short week against on Thursday night, where you'll get that Cleveland game and then New England 4 days later up in Foxborough. So that part of the Jets schedule, I do think actually favors them, where, like I mentioned, last year you were playing 3 games in the first 11 days. And I think for a new coaching staff, a new regime, you don't want too many short weeks. You don't want too many quick turnarounds. You want to try and make this a transition for Glenn and him learning as seamless as possible. If you add in all these different wrinkles, it can make it a lot more difficult. So something else that I wanted to discuss a little bit. Of course, they do play those back-to-back Florida games. Now, into just some of the teams and toughest stretch, easiest stretch, and just the overall breakdown of what's actually ahead of the Jets. I think when you looked at the Jets' opponents and you actually looked at the winning percentage of the Jets' opponents, you thought that the Jets' schedule would actually break out or shape out pretty favorably for them. I actually don't think that was the case. I actually, in my opinion, think the New York Jets got a pretty tough break when it comes to the schedule, especially early on in the season. I'll read you the first couple opponents again. Right, you open up with Pittsburgh, then Buffalo, then Tampa, then Miami on primetime, Dallas, Denver, Carolina, Cincy, bye. That is not a easy start at all. I wouldn't say it's a gauntlet by any means. It's certain, at least of right now. Again, things change. Believe me, we know as Jet fans, things change a ton. How many times last year were we talking about that stretch of Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota being an easy stretch where you had to face guys like Bo Nix and Sam Darnold, and sure enough, those games kicked us in the mouth, right? We know how that is. Things can change. There's always surprises. There's always things that happen even early in the season like that. So who knows? The Jets' first 8 weeks might end up shaping out pretty easily. And the second half of the schedule, which looks like the easier part, might end up being the stronger part for the New York Jets. So we don't know. It's May 14th, but we're taking what we have in front of us. Pittsburgh, even if they have Rodgers or not, they're a well-coached team that is competitive year in and year out. Still, not an easy game, not a gauntlet, but I would say it's a toss-up, right? And then you have Buffalo, which is division winner every single year. Favorites, again, will be in the conversation for the Super Bowl. Tampa, Miami, back-to-back. Tampa has been a playoff team the last couple years. The Baker Mayfield resurgence. Miami, while they have plateaued, this is a Jets team that hasn't gone on the road and beaten Miami since 2014, the Geno Smith perfect passer rating game in Rex Ryan's last game as coach. So it's been a minute. They have not had success out there, and it's a primetime game against a division rival. Those are never easy. Dallas at home won't be easy. Denver, we know what they bring. I always think those London games are toss-ups. The whole trip, the jet lag, the time difference. Sometimes you always get a team coming out sleepwalking, so you never truly know. But Denver should be improved. They've got a very good defense. They're not an easy team at all. Carolina's favorable at home. But even them, though, you could look at a team that could improve here after some of the signs you saw from Bryce Young and that team last year. And then Cincy on the road, them and Buffalo, probably arguably the two toughest matchups that you'll have to face, arguably two of some of the better teams here in the conference. So I actually, in the first 8 weeks, are difficult for the Jets. I do. For a new regime, for this team, there's a couple difficult matchups. Again, it's not a gauntlet, right? But, even if you view Miami as a team that's on the downward spiral, which I do, I think they've gotten worse over the last 2 years. Still, the Jets haven't had a ton of success in Miami recently, and it's a primetime game. Those are always tough, and it is a divisional game at the end of the day. Buffalo is very difficult. Dallas, I think with a healthy Dak, should be right back in the conversation this year in the NFC. That'll not be an easy game. There's always questions over it there, but they're a talented team, just added Pickens as well. Denver, we know what they were able to do last year, well coached as well, and a quarterback in Bo Nix, who actually beat us last year before he really took off. And I'm not basing it all on last season, but I do think the first 8 weeks are tough. I do. I think Pittsburgh's definitely beatable. Don't get me wrong. And they could definitely beat Miami. They can certainly beat Carolina. And there's a good chance they could certainly beat Denver, right? Those are, you're right. You can do that. It's not like they got to play Baltimore and Cincy and the Bills all 3 straight weeks. And then, no, it's not that, but I wouldn't call it favorable early on. There's going to be some tough tests. Now, after the bye week, I think things open up a little bit. To me, the toughest stretch for the Jets is week 1 through 8. I think that's the toughest stretch. I think you preferred a little bit of a softer landing spot where you could maybe see a team like Cleveland or a team like New Orleans in the first 2 to 3 weeks where, right, 2 teams that have questions at quarterbacks, 2 teams coming off of horrible seasons. I think the Jets have more talent than both of those teams. Could have been a little bit more softer than having to face 2 divisional opponents the first 4 weeks, having to face Tomlin. Of course, depending on what happens with Rodgers there. If Rodgers isn't out there, that's much more of a favorable game. Even if he is out there, they could still win. Like I said, I think I label that as a toss-up. But the second half, that's where you'll get your Clevelands. That's where you'll get your New Orleans. That's where you'll get New England at home as well. That's where you'll get Miami at home. So make some of those divisional matchups a little bit more favorable. But you look at the schedule here, second half, I think personally, the toughest stretch, weeks 1 through 8, I think the more favorable stretch, I'm not going to call it easy because winning in the NFL is not easy. I never like to use that term. But the more favorable stretch to me would be that week 13 to week 17 range, where you have Atlanta, you have Miami at home, then you have Jacksonville, you have New Orleans, and you have New England at home. I think that's where you're looking at a little bit more of a favorable stretch where Atlanta's certainly beatable. You have no clue what Penix is. Miami at home, definitely beatable. On the road's tough, but at home, much more favorable. Jacksonville, I'm not very high on, and they've kind of been, they're mediocre in my opinion. That's a winnable game. New Orleans, very winnable. And in New England at home, also winnable. I think honestly, they probably split. I think you probably lose to New England on that Thursday night game, and you probably beat them at home. So that's where I think you're probably looking at your most favorable stretch. And then you can even throw Buffalo in there week 18 in a world where Buffalo's sitting their starters. That could be an opportunity for the Jets to pick up a win. We saw that 2019, the last time the Jets beat the Bills in Buffalo was the last week of the season when Matt Barkley and a bunch of the backups played when they were already secured their playoff spot. So we've seen that already happen before. That happens often. So week 18, you never know. Look, it's May. We're talking about week 18 in January. So that's way down the road. A lot can happen from them. Week 18, who knows what even is on the line at that point. So when you really break it down, that's kind of what I see. And then just individual game-wise, I always like to break down. So toughest games to me for the Jets on this schedule is both Bills games always are tough. And if the Bills don't sit their starters week 18, that's to me still a tough game. Even if they do, it's tough. Just week 18, I know it's a long time from now, but both Bills games, to me, I think the Bucs are tough. Home against the Cowboys, Broncos in London, road games against the Bengals and the Ravens, and in the road game against the Dolphins, to me, are probably your toughest games. And I know even the road game at the Dolphins, you could probably slide under the toss-ups, but to me, this team just does not have success going into Miami. I know it's a different regime, I get it, but it has been basically a decade since this team has gone into Miami and won a football game. And there have been some ugly, ugly losses. And divisional opponents on the road in primetime are never easy. Toss-ups. Home game against the Steelers, I think, is a toss-up. Rodgers or no Rodgers, I think it's winnable for the Jets. But I could see it going both ways. Dolphins at home, on the road in Jacksonville. Both games against New England I view as toss-ups. I think they split, but I think both games for both teams are winnable. Panthers as well. I think the Panthers are going to be very improved this year. And then to me, the most favorable games, that road game against the Saints, Falcons, and the Browns, I think are probably where you're looking at as the most favorable. So when you break it down that way, and if you had to make an early prediction, Assuming, let's say you win the three most favorable games. Let's say you beat Pittsburgh, start out on a quick start. Start out on a high note. Start 1-0. Aaron Glenn, go out there, win week 1. Rodgers, no Rodgers, beat Tomlin, beat Pittsburgh, beat a team that is consistently in the playoffs every year. Week 1, make a little bit of a statement. All right, go on the road and beat Jacksonville. Beat Carolina at home, coming off of London, whatever happens out there. I think that can get you to, let's say you win 3 of those favorable games, you beat Pittsburgh, you beat Carolina, you're up to 5. You split New England, you're up to 6 wins. Let's say you beat Jacksonville or split that Miami-Jacksonville. Okay, you get up to about 6-7 wins, and then you try and find a way to steal one of those tough games, right? The Jets have had success recently against the Bills at home. They have. They've been able to at least play them close. They've been able to contain Josh Allen a lot more at home than they have on the road. Is this a team that is going to start red hot? Is this a team that's going to shock a lot of people and you beat Pittsburgh week 1 and you carry that momentum into week 2, where you take on a Bills team who plays Cincy week 1 on Sunday night, which is a very difficult and not an easy week 1 matchup by any means for either of those teams? Could get in themselves in a dogfight week 2. Could that be an opportunity for the Jets to kind of catch the Bills looking ahead a bit early in the season? Certainly possible. Of course, the Broncos are, I think, going to be a threat this year. But you go into London. Can you win a London game for the first time since 2015? Can you split that Bucs-Dolphins stretch while you're out there in Florida? Shock the world and beat Cincy? Let's see the Jets, get an upset, right? Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And that's something else that's important for this team as well. Right, there's a couple teams in the schedule. This team should take care of business. And I know these other teams are looking at the Jets and seeing them as winnable opponents, but the Jets recently have lost a lot of games against teams that they shouldn't be losing to. You take care of business against these favorable teams in the favorable stretch in this schedule, and you find a way to muster up, 1 or 2 of those toss-up wins, and you get an upset or 2. I think personally you're looking at, realistically, heart tells me a lot more. The Jets fan inside of me tells me, give me 9-10 wins, squeak into the playoffs. But realistically, I think you're looking at a 7-10 type of season. If I had to make a prediction right now, I think that's where I'm going with. Personally. I think the first couple weeks are not a gauntlet, like I said, but they're tough. They're not easy. They're certainly not easy. They're certainly not favorable. It's a couple tough matchups. And I think you look at that second half, things can open up a little bit more for the Jets. I think you tread water and you're okay. First half of the season, you come out, second half, can pick up a couple more wins, continue to be competitive, see some growth. I think that's probably what you're looking at. 7-10 would be my early prediction for this New York Jets 2025 team. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts? Am I being too rough on the first 8 weeks? Or is it accurate? Do you believe that the Jets got a pretty tough opening slate? What are your thoughts on the second half? What are your thoughts on the schedule as a whole? What is your way too early record prediction? I always adjust it. This is my record prediction as we sit here now on May 14th. I'll, of course, do my full season preview before the year, do my final record prediction then. This is an early first peek of the schedule. This is what I got. I think 7-10, 8-9, those are probably the 2 most realistic landing spots for this team. I think you settle on 7-10 right now, and maybe by the end of camp, then you boost up one win or so, and you get yourself to 8-9, and you go from there. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below on the New York Jets 2025 schedule. Think it's easy? Think it's tough? Where do you stand? What are some games you're looking forward to? I'm just happy we got a 1:00 home opener. It's been some time. It's felt like a long time since that Ravens debacle in 2022, where it was a 1:00 game. watching it at 1 o'clock, get home at a reasonable time. Prime time and all that, it gets old fast, in my opinion, especially when you're not winning. To me, there's nothing better than a Sunday fall afternoon watching the game, 1 o'clock, whether you're in attendance or you're watching it at home. There's nothing better in my eyes. There truly isn't. So, and of course, you like your mix, right? The 2 primetime games, that's perfectly good enough for me. The 1 London game and the rest be 1 o'clocks. I'm totally good with that, and I'm happy with that. So, where do you stand on the schedule? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Appreciate your support. As always, we'll have a lot more content coming your way here the rest of the week. Until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.